Well, hello, welcome to my kitchen. A few weeks ago, we were craving a chocolate pie, so I pulled out my old Luby's cookbook that my mother gave me. There is a fabulous chocolate pie recipe in here, and as you can see, this recipe is a tiny bit complicated. Now, it was delicious, I will say that, but it was time consuming because you had to measure out all of the ingredients. There are 11 ingredients in this pie, and that's not including the pie crust. And they're separating the eggs, tempering the eggs, mixing, bringing to a boil, and all of that stuff, which when I have time, I love to do. But unfortunately, I don't always have the time for these kind of recipes. So my husband wanted another chocolate pie, and I was on a mission to find an easier version, and I found it. I'm not a big fan of Jello pudding, and I definitely don't like instant pudding. There's nothing that I can do that takes that packaged taste out of it. And even the cook and serve, which I use in this recipe, is not good to me by itself. But I did find a way to make this taste like this. Yes. When I made this pie for my husband, he said it was even better than the first one, and he had no idea. This is what I used. Now I'm boosting those flavors with some Unsweetened Bakers Chocolate, a half of a cup of sugar, and also I'm using heavy cream along with the milk in this recipe. Now I'm starting out with a store-bought pie crust, and this is the frozen pie crust. And I'm doing what's called docking the pie. And I'm taking a fork and I am putting as many holes in this as possible. It doesn't have to be pretty. We're gonna pre-cook this and we'll add our pie filling to the crust. This is a great thing to get your kids or your grandkids to do. Fun starting them out young, helping in the kitchen. My mother did that with me, my grandmother, and tell you what, it really makes a difference. And not to mention, those are great memories. Okay, this is good. Now I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and I'm gonna pop this in for 10 to 12 minutes. Set my timer for that. Now, let's get started on the filling. I'm using just a medium-sized saucepan, and the recipe on the package calls for 3 cups of milk, and I've reduced that. I'm using 1 2/3 cup. Measure this out here, which I cannot do without my glasses. And that goes right in my saucepan. Next, I'm using a whole cup of heavy cream. This makes all of the difference in the world. This heavy cream is so good, and it really helps change the texture of this pie, makes it nice and thick and creamy. And the milk that I'm using is 2%, so this really brings in that fat that we need to make our pie rich and creamy. So there goes that. Now into my milk and cream, I've measured out a half of a cup of granulated sugar. That goes right in. And I'm just gonna stir this. There we go. And my pudding. Make sure that your pudding says cook and serve. And this is the large package of pudding. The Jello comes in two sizes, a small and a large, and you want to make sure that you get the large. I'll have the ounces on the recipe. Look below in the comments, and I'll give you the exact size package that you need to use. And I'm just stirring this in, just getting this blended a little bit. It's hard to believe that a packaged pudding could make such a rich, decadent pie. But then again, we're adding all of these great ingredients, which makes all the difference in the world. Now I'm using an unsweetened baker's chocolate. I'm using unsweetened because I sweetened it with 1/2 cup of sugar. Again, this is going to help change the texture of the pie and give it a thicker, more substantial texture than just the pudding alone would. And I'm using 1 ounce, which is 4 squares. There's my 4 squares. And just to make sure that it melts a little bit easier, I'm just going to do a little rough chop on this. And that way it takes less time to melt. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can definitely just add it whole. It will melt. It just takes a little bit more time. So there we go. It's as easy as that. Now, I'm going to put this on my burner, and I'm going to turn it to a medium heat. Now, one thing that you're going to need to do is make sure that you're stirring this constantly. If not, the bottom is going to stick. So you do not want that to happen. And this is going to take maybe about 5 minutes to pull it up to temperature and get it to boil. So come on over and I'll show you how I'm going to do it. Look at how this is bubbling up. Just beautifully. See how nice and thick and rich that looks? Now I'm going to continue to stir the bottom and just let that slowly boil for about a minute, making sure that all of that sugar is dissolved and all of that chocolate is melted. This is ready to go. It's perfect. And that chocolate just gives it a richer, deeper, chocolatey, so good flavor. That goes right in. Now, I'm just going to smooth this out. Look at this. That is so good. Now I'm adding just some plastic wrap. This is press and seal. You can use just your regular saran wrap, whatever. And this goes right on top. And you want to do it while it's hot. And I'm just going to take my fingers, make sure that it's sealed all around the edges. There we go. Now this is going to go in the refrigerator and it's ready to eat once it's chilled. This pie is as good from the first slice as it is to the last. I promise you, you will not have any leftovers at your house. This is going to go in the fridge, and once it cools, we'll be ready to top it. All right, my pie has chilled and it is ready to finish. Now, I'm going to just take this plastic wrap right off. This keeps the pie from getting a thick skin on top. So it is an important step, and you definitely don't want to skip that. Now I've got some Cool Whip. If you want to make some fresh whipped cream, I am all for that. But as I said, I am going easy today, so I'm just going to give the whipped cream or my Cool Whip a nice little stir and scoop it right over the top. And use as much or as little as you like. I used pretty much 2/3 of my container. And I'm just going to bring this right out to the edges. I am going to leave just a little bit of the chocolate peeking through. I just think it's pretty when you can look at the pie and you don't wonder what's inside. This definitely says chocolate. So good. Now for the garnish, I have a little bit of a Hershey's chocolate bar left over. And I'm going to take my potato peeler and I am going to make a few little chocolate swirls to go on top. And just, this has not been refrigerated. It's just room temperature. Just put these right over the top. Now, I'm just going to make this look a little prettier, and this is going to go right into my pie server. Now, doesn't this look delicious? I know my husband's going to be happy when he gets home and sees that we have a chocolate pie for dessert tonight. But let's see how we did. Look at this pie. The first piece is always the hardest to get out, but look at that. Look how creamy and smooth and thick that is. And the most important part is the taste. Let's see. That is so good. And the best part is that it did not take me an hour to make. I can do this in 15 minutes, start to finish, with the exception of your chill time. And that is definitely a treat. Listen, you are a blessing to me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, press that like button, share it with your friends. The more, the merrier. I hope that you have a fabulous day. I am going to go enjoy my piece of pie. See you next time.